Minister, is your government going to do anything to address the record high gas prices and bring some relief to drivers across the country?
We've continued to worry about the increased cost of living, which is why we've moved forward on everything from childcare to investing in affordable housing to making sure we're supporting people in every way that we can.
But what about gas prices? The price of gas, though.
Oh, yes. On Alberta, look, we obviously have an independent judicial system in this country, and we respect the work that is being done. But just like when we saw the Alberta courts come out against the price on pollution, that we then referred to the Supreme Court, where it was determined that, yes, the federal government has the responsibility to bring forward measures for the country. We continue to believe that ensuring environmental protection and predictability for investors on big projects is extremely important. Thank you.
So what's your response to the decision from the Alberta Court of Appeal about the Environmental Impact Act?
Well, as you know, the government went through almost a 3-year process to develop a set of better rules that would ensure that environmental assessments are done in a thoughtful way, and so that good projects can proceed. The Alberta Court has made a ruling today in a 4-to-1 split. Our view is the legislation remains constitutional, and we will be appealing.
You are definitely going to appeal to the Supreme Court?
We will be appealing.
On what grounds?
Well, you have an automatic right to appeal in these kinds of cases. This is a reference, so the legislation stays in force, the regulations stay in force. But of course, we want to ensure there's clarity for folks. In the same way that when there was a reference on the Greenhouse Gas Pricing Act around carbon pricing, the Alberta Court on a 4-to-1 split, same as this one, found against the government. All of the other courts found in favor of the government, and so did the Supreme Court. We will be going through the same route.
What would the impact be for resource projects across the country if this act is struck down?
Well, look, we consulted broadly with Indigenous communities, with Canadians, with industry, with legal experts from around the country. We are very confident that this is constitutional, that our position will be upheld. But what I would say to you is the whole point of an environmental assessment process is to have rigor, to ensure that we actually are addressing substantive environmental concerns at the very early stages, such that good projects can go ahead and projects that actually are not able to be conformed to good environmental standards do not early on. If, in fact, this legislation was to not be in effect, we're in a situation where we're not being protective of the environment. And at the end of the day, the federal government has a responsibility in areas of federal jurisdiction, which is what the IAC is focused on, to ensure appropriate environmental protection.
Would you consider amended or revised legislation in advance of a Supreme Court challenge, and given the likelihood that the possibility the court doesn't agree to hear it?
No, we have no intention of revising the Act. We believe that the Act is fully constitutional. As I said, I would point you to the Alberta Court's decision on the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act. We are of the view that it remains fully within federal jurisdiction, and we will be appealing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So I'm here to comment on the Canadian Feminist Alliance report, or the Canadian Feminist Alliance for International Actions report, most recent report on the toxic culture of the RCMP related to ongoing misogyny, racism and violence perpetrated against Indigenous and racialized women. Last week, on May 5th, I asked the Minister of Public Safety why his government continues to fail to respond to the 231 calls for justice of the National Inquiry into Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women and Girls, many related to policing and justice. We don't lack solutions or calls for justice related to policing. We have certainly calls for justice outlined in the National Inquiry. We have the Aboriginal Justice Inquiry that took place decades ago. We have the Human Rights Watch report from 2014 in BC, 2017 in Saskatchewan. Yet, what we lack is political will and action. This is costing lives. The government needs to stop talking, and it needs to immediately act to end the systemic racism in policing and in the justice system that's being perpetrated against Indigenous women and girls 2S LGBTQIA. The findings are there. They've been found and reported time and time again, yet this government lacks the political will to act. If this government is serious about addressing systemic racism in policing, they have the answers. Now it's time for them to immediately act to save lives.
May I ask a question on another topic? Last week, the NDP called for universal access to contraception. I'm wondering if you've had any further consultation with the government. Have you heard anything about whether they're going to go for this plan?
Well, look, the NDP has put forward a pharmacare plan. Included in that plan is free access to contraceptives. Look, we can talk about the right to choice, but then we have to really give people choice, and that includes ensuring that women and diverse gendered individuals have access to proper reproductive health care, and as well, contraceptions, so that they truly have a choice.
And have you heard anything from the government about whether they'll put that at the top of the list of the pharmacare plan?
Well, look, we've put an offer on the table. Again, it's a matter of political will. The Liberal government certainly talks a good game around a woman's right to choose. However, they fail to act. We see that now most recently, where the government has failed to distribute the $45 million they promised in support of reproductive health. I asked a question to the minister yesterday. The offer's on the table. We're just waiting for political will from this current government.
What do you think about the possibility of ending the prayer every morning at the House of Commons?
Well, I think while we're looking, certainly reflecting on that, maybe it's time to reflect on doing a land acknowledgement. If we're looking at changing, the procedures in the House of Commons, maybe it's time for us to also reflect on incorporating a land acknowledgement.
Will you vote for the motion?
Well, what I can say is I think, now, while we're reflecting, I think certainly this is a good time to reflect on also including a land acknowledgement. Thank you. Thank you very much.